washed-out basements amid general alarm across the city. Researchers at the University of the West Indies have cited high-intensity rainfall events as a major hydrometeorological hazard affecting Jamaica, noting that Kingston is highly susceptible to urban flooding, primarily in the downstream sections of the Hope River watershed and the Ligony Plains. Notwithstanding Jamaica's enviable building codes, is there room for improvement in our construction methods? And specifically, in Kingston, could the application of nature-based solutions in urban construction projects make a difference in the face of more adverse flooding events? Consider, for example, how building porous parking lots and permeable pathways in your next project would allow for greater percolation and absorption, and therefore less runoff from the property to the roadway and into the stormwater drainage system. This nature-based solution, if employed widely in our construction industry, may one day solve the flooding of Kingston spaces and roadways. Learn more by visiting the United Nations Environment Programme project website, cityadapt.com, or simply scan this QR code right here.
Jamaicans, practice proper disposal of garbage, and if items can be reused, recycle them. We all have a part to play in protecting our environment from pollution. We are building Jamaica.
Join PBCJ Thursdays at 8 p.m. for Let's Talk Goals, a dynamic 30-minute discussion program focused on sustainable development in Jamaica. Dive into engaging conversations with leading experts in their fields as we explore crucial topics like development planning, climate change and the environment, and economic diversification. Be part of the dialogue that shapes our future. Mark your calendars beginning Thursday, October 31 at 8 p.m. for Let's Talk Goals, where your voice matters and the future begins. Don't miss it, only on PBCJ, the People's Station.
Denise Williams here, inviting you to join us on Financially Focused, the ultimate destination for go-getters who are ready to take the step-by-step actions to master your finances and create a family legacy. Tune in, watch, take notes, and participate to discover the strategies of our expert guests who provide invaluable guidance and powerful coaching tools to supercharge your financial journey.
Tune in to Financially Focused, Thursdays at 8:30 p.m. only on PBCJ, the People's Station.
The hurricane season runs from June 1 through November 30. It normally peaks between August and October. Be prepared. Place important documents such as legal papers, passport, birth certificate, marriage license, financial papers, medical records, and insurance policies in airtight plastic bags or in a safety deposit box. If possible, make copies of them. You can also use an external hard drive to store your documents and access these secure documents from any computer. Monitor your radio or television for weather updates and instructions. Be prepared.
Come July, your NHT home improvement loan will increase to $3.5 million for qualifying applicants. Your government is caring for you.
Get ready to be inspired. Join us on PBCJ's Giving Hearts, the show that celebrates kindness, compassion, and generosity.
So we try to give books, shoes, lunch snacks, and uniform allowance.
We'll share powerful stories of individuals and organizations making a difference across the island each week.
My mother and I felt the need to keep helping children with special needs and other children.
From ordinary people doing extraordinary things to organizations driving positive change.
And we haul up garbage, whether with our nets, hooks, picks.
Giving Hearts will warm your heart and inspire you to take action. Don't miss Giving Hearts, airing Sundays at 8 p.m. with a rebroadcast on Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m. exclusively on PBCJ, the People's Station.
If you want to volunteer, definitely do it. You get actually a rewarding feeling after.
Join the movement. Spread love. Give from the heart. Giving Heart Sundays at 8 p.m., Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m. on PBCJ. Follow us on social media at PBC Jamaica for updates and more inspiring stories.
We care about our minimum wage earners. That is why we increased the minimum from the previous increase of 13,000 to now 15,000. And as our economy continues to improve, you can look forward to even more increases. Your government is caring for you.
Young Jamaicans up to 35, your government will reserve up to 10% of NHT housing solutions over the next 5 years, just for you, with 100% financing up to 15 million Jamaican dollars. This is how we are empowering and breaking the cycle of poverty meaningfully. Your government is caring for you.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
The hurricane season runs from June 1 through November 30. It normally peaks between August and October. Be prepared. Identify an area in your home and bring pets indoors. Keep pets on a leash or in a carrier. Store at least a week's supply of food and drinking water for your pet. Monitor your radio or television for weather updates and instructions. Be prepared.
Motorists, as Minister of Justice, I appeal to you, obey the road code, pay your ticket on time, and only go to court if the ticket is being contested. Close to 80% of matters coming to the parish courts are for traffic breaches. Let's work together to make our roads safe and ease the burden on our courts.
The hurricane season runs from June 1 through November 30. It normally peaks between August and October. Be prepared. Have a plan of action that your family is aware of. Create a checklist of exactly what needs to be done by each family member. Identify and advise family members of a common meeting place if you're at different locations before the storm hits. If you need to evacuate, turn off all utilities and follow community disaster preparedness plans. Preparation and planning are keys to keeping yourself and your family safe. Monitor your radio or television for weather updates and instructions. Be prepared.
Get ready to be inspired. Join us on PBCJ's Giving Hearts, the show that celebrates kindness, compassion, and generosity.
So we try to give books, shoes, lunch snacks, and uniform allowance.
We'll share powerful stories of individuals and organizations making a difference across the island each week.
My mother and I.
Morning, Jamaica, and it is November 6, 2024. Welcome to another post-cabinet press briefing, and today again will be an interesting one. We expect additional guests to join us this morning, but we have a lot of special people in the room today, and I want to acknowledge our Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, Dr. Horace Chang, who is here with us today. I also see PS, or Permanent Secretary in the new Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, Dr. Kassan Troop. And I also note that our Chief Education Officer is here also. And I have to acknowledge here with us this morning is Deputy Commissioner of Police Richard Stewart, who has responsibility for crime and security. And we have some ACPs, other senior members of the JCF here with us. We also have Dr. Tanisha Ingleton, the Managing Director of Heart NSTA Trust. We also have Mr. Simon Bartley, who is the Honorary President of World Skills International, who is visiting Jamaica and assisting us in thinking through the role of skills training in our country's development. Other members of the Heart NSTA Trust team that are here. I know members of the JDF and JCF are here. Members of the media and the team from JIS and OPM. Jamaicans watching here and abroad. Again, good morning to you. And we have to start this morning's press briefing by really taking a moment to be grateful. We had a tropical storm pass to the south of us. We did not get a direct hit again. Again, the prayers of so many people in our country have taken us through. And so this morning we start with a spirit of gratefulness that God has spared us again. We know there are individuals who are affected by the storm, and our teams are out there. They're doing as much work as they can. This morning, Minister Robert Morgan will be joining us to speak through the road conditions and any issues that we may be seeing across the country. We'll also get a quick update from ODPEM also this morning. As the morning goes on, you'll see more people show up to give briefings. In terms of our schools, which is obviously a priority, we have indicated to schools that we would like them to open for face-to-face classes where possible. We understand that there are many communities that have been adversely affected by the weather system. And so the key thing for us is the safety of our children. So while we understand that the best places for our children to be in school learning, we also want them to be safe. We want our teachers to be safe, and we want our parents to be safe in transporting children to school. And so while we say face-to-face, and that is the best for our children, we only do that where it is safe to do so. Government offices are also open again today, and we know, again, some of our public sector employees will have some challenges getting to work. We had indicated yesterday again that if you're having any challenges, please speak to your supervisor or your head of entity. We are here to support everyone who gives their service to this country, and we will make allowances for those who cannot come in because of their circumstances. And so, again, we thank the Lord for sparing us, and we look forward to hearing from those who will present later in terms of the impact of Raphael on our country. And so this morning, there are going to be a few different segments. We're going to start with Heart NSTA Trust. As you heard last week, Minister Fable Williams launched Youth Month. And this morning we're continuing along that theme. Heart NSTA Trust is responsible for young people from 17 upwards, and I don't like to put the ceiling because now everybody wants to go to Heart. So from 17 up is really their mandate, and they have a series of Youth Month activities too that they want to tell Jamaica about. So they will go first, and then after that we will have our Minister of National Security speaking to a matter that I try to bring up every single week that I am here, and that is in relation to crime and the reduction in our crime numbers. And I'm going to say it every single week. You're going to get tired of hearing it. When the numbers were going up, it was making news every single day. Now that the numbers are going down, and our JCF team has worked so well and so tirelessly to bring them down, we also need to have that make news. And so every week I'm going to say it. And this morning, we do have the leadership of the JCF here with us to talk through what they're seeing and some of the strategies going forward. So that will be coming up, and then we will have our Minister responsible for Works speaking to you about the repairs to be done. I also anticipate that our Prime Minister will be here joining us a bit later to also speak to the crime-related matters. But DPM will be, or Deputy Prime Minister will lead on that. And so I will start things off with Heart NSTA Trust, and please invite Dr. Tanisha Ingleton to come and do the presentation on that.
Thank you so much, Minister. Good morning, Jamaica. It is indeed a beautiful day. I want to start by saying that on Monday, the Trust celebrated 42 years. The Trust was established on November 4, 1982 by the former Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Edward Seaga. And so we celebrated 42 years on Monday, and we will be celebrating for the entire month of November, demonstrating to Jamaica that for 42 of Jamaica's 62 post-independence years, Heart has been at the forefront of national productivity and development. And at the center of our celebrations is our youth. Youth are the most important stakeholders. As a matter of fact, the World Economic Forum would have indicated that the median age of the world's population is under 30, making young people the most important stakeholders in the world's future. And that is why we have to engage them. That is why we have to help them to drive dialogue, action, and change. And so the Heart NSTA Trust, partnering with the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth, and Information, we have an entire month of activities planned for our youth. And specifically for the Trust, we're going to be starting with our Pandikana activity. And the reason why we're starting with the Pandikana is because we recognize that a lot of our young people may be in their communities sitting at the various areas at football matches, cricket matches, they may be going to parties, etc. And the Heart NSTA Trust will be mobilizing its team to be out there with them, to speak to them about the different programs that the Trust has to offer, to help them to get career counseling, and to help them so that they cannot become unattached individuals. We will be right across the island, Deputy Prime Minister, Portland, St. James, Hanover, Brayton, Juiceland, Oracabessa, Savlamar, everywhere across Jamaica for the month of November with our Pandikana activity. We also have a series called Build a Business. We recognize that our young people today have that entrepreneurial mind, and we want to nurture that. So we'll be having the Around the Table Build a Business series, where we will seek to expose young persons to basic principles involved in wealth creation and enterprise development. We want them to know from a very early stage what it is like to build a business, to own a business, to pay your taxes, and to be part of contributing positively to society. And then there is a skills swap. And this one is exciting, Minister, because we will be ensuring that their gender norms are broken down. So this year, the Heart College of Beauty Services and the Heart College of Construction Services will swap male and female trainees for an immersive and hands-on journey into fields traditionally dominated by the opposite gender. This activity will be filmed and shared via social media for greater youth interaction. So we'll have our males doing all of those activities that would have been done at the Heart College of Beauty Services that is dominated by women. And we'll have our females at the Heart College of Construction Services doing all of those skills areas that are normally dominated by men, because we want to break down the gender norms. If you can do it, I can do it too. And the more individuals we have having skills across the different service areas, we will inevitably build a better Jamaica. And then there's the Think Inc. tournament. We recognize that many of our young people don't like to write, and we want to get them back into writing, being able to talk, have dialogue, action, speak truth to power. We want to develop that skill set in them, and we'll be doing that with the Think Inc. tournament, and we're focusing the Think Inc. tournament around mental health. That is very important for us at this time. And there's the Imagination Wall. An Imagination Wall will be created within one of our high traffic hotspot communities with the aim of showcasing the trust and the skills as a better way of life. And we're currently in discussions with JSCF regarding the selection of a community and permissions associated with this to ensure that we can have an imagination wall where individuals can look and see at a glance what is it that skills has to to offer. And of course, Minister, there's a leadership development seminar. We are building leaders. We would have heard earlier on that our youth, they are the future. And so we have to be very deliberate and targeted in ensuring that they are equipped with the requisite leadership competencies to lead us, as they will inevitably be doing in the next couple of years. So we're going to be having our leadership development seminar under the theme, Empower Youth, Unlocking the Potential, Inspiring Futures, because we want our youth to be able to act professionally, to dress appropriately, to have difficult conversations in their various spaces of work, to understand time management, understand conflict management, and understand how to manage up, because they'll have to be doing a lot of that. And then, Minister, we're going to be having our Agri Open Day, and this event will be at the Heart and Estates Trust Ebony Park Academy. The institution will showcase offerings and the possibilities of careers in agriculture. And we would have heard from Mr. Simon Bartley during our TVET summit about the importance of agriculture and essentially building out skill sets in that area so we can future-proof our economy. And we also have youth advancement through parenting education workshop. No matter how much we're talking about skills and the stakeholders, the parents are critical, because we have to help them first to see how important it is to allow their children to take the path that they really want to take and not to be encumbered by traditional approaches. And essentially, Minister, those are just some of the various things that we'll be looking on for the month of November. And today, right about now, at the AC Marriott, we're having our youth forum. We have children from all across Jamaica coming to that youth forum to have discussions about TVET, to see on display all of the technology that the Heart and Estate Trust has invested in, to see where Jamaica is going, what is the future of skills, and how is it that they can tap into that so that they can become productive citizens. So young people are indeed the world's most valuable resource and its best hope for the future. And the Heart and Estate Trust is doing all that it can to ensure that the future of every Jamaican is secured. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ingleton. That's a lot of activities going on, and I know Heart has things going on. The Minister of Education has things that are happening in terms of Youth Month, but it does show the importance of our youth. And I think it's a good morning to be talking about Youth Month, because we have, we're talking about crime this morning. That's really the key topic for us this morning. And our young people and reaching our young people is really, really critical if we're going to be able to have a sustainable reduction in crime. We have to give them alternatives, and we have to ensure that we create a future for them and we instill in them the values that we need for our country going forward. And so I commend Heart for their activities. I commend the Ministry of Education for all of the activities around Youth Month. And I know as we're together now, we'll work a lot closer in terms of delivering all of these activities. We have a special guest with us from the UK, and he is going to just speak for 2 minutes on the international perspective and where Jamaica sits in world skills. And this is a very important organization. Right after the Olympics this year, Jamaica sent a team to the World Skills International Competition, and Jamaica did very well at that competition. And I believe that when we hear from Mr. Bartley in relation to what World Skills offers, you will be excited about the relationship between Jamaica and that organization. So I'd like to have him just speak for 2 minutes. And I have to acknowledge while he comes up, that our Minister with Responsibility for Works is here. He's been out there doing all of the assessments, so he's going to be up next. And I also see in the room Ambassador Alison Stone-Roof, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security, also here. Mr. Bartley, I give you 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Minister. I'm truly delighted to be standing here in front of you and in front of the people of Jamaica to talk briefly about the importance of the world skills movement to the young people, to the adults, to the businesses, and to all of the people of Jamaica. TVET and skills are now the most pressing agenda item in governments around the country. What World Skills does is it facilitates the writing of and the presentation of high-level standards. Rather like in the Olympics, it runs competitions that allows those standards to be compared between individual nations. And most recently in Lyon, France, only 5 weeks ago, the World Skills International Competition, the Olympics of Skills, was held, and as the Minister says, with 5 competitors from Jamaica in not very traditional skills, but modern skills that are important for the economy and the social well-being of Jamaica. We seek to transfer knowledge between countries. We seek that those countries that win gold medals use their expertise, their experts, to work with countries that are still approaching the winning of gold medals. And when we next meet in 2 years' time in Shanghai, China for the competition, I have no doubt that the progress that I have evidenced since I came to Jamaica in 2010 to the World Skills General Assembly and really got to understand heart, those competitors will not only be more numerous, but will also be more able to compete on a global scale. And let's not mince our words. We now work in a global marketplace for labour. Here in Jamaica, you have skill shortages in certain areas, but nearly full employment. You are going to have to think about the import of labour in the same way as traditionally you have always exported labour. But you need that labour that's coming to have a standard that is going to meet the requirements of industry and commerce here in Jamaica. And World Skills seeks to ensure that the world is a better place with the use of skills. So thank you very much for having me today, and I wish the youth, the educators and the businesses and the government of Jamaica all the best in its future.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Bartley, and you heard it. TVET is central to any country's development, and that's how we are looking at it in the Ministry of Education. Rolling out TVET deeply in our schools from as early as possible is a priority, because we understand that skills training is the way forward, and we're encouraged by the fact that since the Prime Minister announced the elimination of fees at heart, that we've seen 120,000 Jamaicans signing up to do skills training programs in our country. And that is fabulous. And so I commend the HEART team for that. And as we take skills training even more into schools, we know that ultimately we're going to have a much more skilled labor force in our country going forward. All right, so I'm going to continue this morning, and Minister Morgan is here, and we're going to be getting an update on damage caused by the weather event named Raphael. And so welcome, Minister Morgan.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maurice Dixon, and thanks to all the persons who are tuning in online, and also to my colleagues and friends here this morning. I see everybody is nice and dry, which is always a good thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to give a preliminary report on the impact of Tropical Storm Raphael on Jamaica over the last several days. We would all know that Tropical Storm Raphael started impacting the island on the 4th of November. We saw significant flooding in several areas of the island, and I would just like to give you a short rundown of some of the areas that were mostly impacted by the tropical storm. We had issues in St. Ann along the White River, corridor, St. Mary at Gualter Vale. We had issues in Broadgate, Toms River, which is in St. Mary, the Junction area as well. In St. Andrew saw significant challenges, especially in northern, West Rural St. Andrew. We had Mount Erie, Golden Spring, Chesterfield Drive also had some serious challenges, including Stony Hill, Nolan Hill. We also had issues in St. Andrew where the Troja Fording saw some significant inundation, as well as Worthy Park in St. John's, Barton's in Old Harbour. Big Pond also saw significant flooding where persons were not able to exit the community or enter. I think the water is receding just now. We also had issues in Yuatan, as you know, as well. The Bogwat Gorge constantly floods when we have significant rain events. And also in Spanish Town, Sligoville, and also St. Thomas. I spoke to the Member of Parliament, Mr. James Robertson. His constituents also had some serious challenges. We had some issues in RT's, Poor Man's Corner, Trinityville, Grand Spence, Church Corner, and so on. Generally, and I can share the full list with the members of the media, we did have damage, but it wasn't as significant as what we have seen before in the likes of Beryl. So we must be thankful. We didn't lose any roads really, but we had some significant landslides, particularly in West Rural St. Andrew. We had some landslides in Northern and several other communities. In the general appraisal, we had about 15 roads blocked totally, 10 flooded. Minor road damage was about 2. We had about 7 single lane situations where there was only single lane access, and major we had about 2 totally impassable roads. The approach of the National Works Agency whenever we have challenges like this is the first objective is to create access, and that is usually single lane access, which will give the opportunity of emergency services and residents in general to exit. Particularly as we're seeking to reopen schools, we're trying to find ways to create single access where schools can open where possible. I know the Ministry of Education did issue a release asking schools to open where possible. We were partnering with the regions in the various parishes and the various parish councils as well to provide single access. The second phase will be the clearing, which is the total clearing of the roads that have landslides on them. The longer term problem is that there are some areas, for example in East Rural, where we have had major landslides, which has essentially destroyed roads. We all saw one on television where the entire community has been cut off. That is going to take some time to repair. There are also some other minor slippages that have taken place. The National Works Agency is currently in the field doing their assessment to see what the damage is. And I'm sure the Prime Minister will be giving an update as to what the damage is and what the cost to the country is. But I think we should be thankful that it wasn't as serious, and we are with our friends and our countrymen who have suffered damage, and I want to assure them that the government is here to assist. Minister, I think that's the report so far. I'm willing to take questions if you will allow.
I most certainly will allow. Naomi, are there any questions for Minister Morgan? And I have to thank you for coming and doing that update. And I do think it is very much symbolic of a government that is at work. Many of us were still working yesterday, even though government offices were closed, but entities like NW and Minister Morgan had to be out there doing assessments, and even before the rains have stopped. It is so good to have you here giving an update and knowing really where the issues are, and throughout the day we'll continue to do assessments. But I do thank you and the team for all of that hard work and for demonstrating that we really are on top of all of these matters in our country. So Naomi, over to you.
Thank you, Minister, and good morning, everyone. I know that our media colleagues have a packed day today with the other activities that will take place, but there's one question online, Minister, and that is, if you could as well give an update in terms of the resumption of patching activities, the REACH program, and of course Spark.
So Spark is, let me start with Spark. Spark is ongoing. I know a lot of persons think Spark has not started, but the asphalt is actually one phase of Spark. There is the procurement aspect, there is the planning aspect that started as far back from an action perspective in May, but from a policy perspective the year before. So we have gotten the approval of the Public Investment Administration branch, PIAB, and we are currently now at the Public Procurement Commission for their approval, after which it will be going to the Infrastructure Committee and then to Cabinet. We expect by the end of November those processes will be completed, so we'll be able to do our first road before the end of the year. And I will be inviting, as Minister without portfolio on behalf of the Prime Minister, yourself and other members of the media for this historic occasion when we start the first road. As it relates to REACH, REACH continues until March of next year. It is not a one-off patching program. It's a program that we programmed it because we knew we would have events from time to time that may cause damage to our roads. So it continues. It is 2 phases, September to the end of November, and from January to March. We have had some delays because of the rains. You cannot patch roads in rain. It's not wise to patch wet roads. We did try to do a thing, as they say, and lost some asphalt because they got cold in the rain, so we decided to pause it. As soon as the time dries a bit, we will resume the REACH patching program. And I will say to you, Minister, we have received many calls from residents and commuters alike expressing appreciation for the work that we're doing. There are some who are still calling on us because we have not reached them yet, but the long arm of REACH will touch everyone eventually. Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you very much, Minister Morgan, for being with us this morning. I saw some patching happening on the weekend, and my daughter said, "Why are we patching? The hurricane season isn't finished yet. Shouldn't we wait until the end of the hurricane season?" And I said, "Wow, you brilliant young people who can assess things in that way." And that's what you want, right? PS and CEO, that is what we want, our children to be looking at things and thinking about whether or not what we are doing is really the right policy direction. But we all want our roads fixed, and I've seen your teams out there doing as much as they can in spite of the rain. But thank you, Minister
Thank you
Morgan.
very much, Dr. Morris.
All right, and so we have to move on. And so, Deputy Prime Minister, we're going to be inviting you to lead off on the presentation on the reduction in crime and the work of the JCF.
Thank you. Good morning. Good to see everybody out as well after yesterday's events, safe and dry. But let me recognize my colleague, Minister Dana Morris. She's still with us. She has taken on a much wider role as a role, a heavier load. But she has a good team working with her, and of course, Mr. Morgan, you have just heard. A good morning again to you and to all Jamaicans listening. With me this morning, of course, I have Deputy Commissioner Richard Stewart and team members from the JCF, Assistant Commissioner Mr. McLaughlin from CTOC, Acting Assistant Commissioner Mr. Wayne Joseph from the CIB and the Intelligence, and of course Mr. Wayne, Senior Superintendent Wayne Clark of the Intelligence Department. And my Permanent Secretary, Ambassador Alice Stoneroof, joined us for this morning presentation. Today we'd like to provide the nation with some updates on the matters relating to the major crime landscape. This particularly in light of the recent incidents of multiple killings in three different parishes. These include the events in particular Cherry Tree Lane out in Clarendon, Pleasant Heights, formerly called Warwicker Hills in the St. Andrew Hills, and of course Boyne Road recently in South St. Andrew, have understandably caused concern among our citizens. I want to reassure the nation that Jamaica Constabulary Force is working tirelessly to maintain peace and security and bring the perpetrators of these heinous acts to justice. We understand the gravity of the station and are treating each incident with the utmost priority. This has been a priority for the government of Andrew Holness from the very beginning. Our approach is multifaceted and includes intensified investigative efforts, leveraging intelligence and deploying a significant operational presence to target key actors and protect those persons who are vulnerable and likely victims. While the incidents are deeply concerning, it is important to highlight they are not random acts of violence. They are linked to conflicts between organized criminal groups involving gang activities, drug trafficking, lottery scamming, as we call advance fee fraud, called by the Americans elder fraud, and of course gun running. In the major crimes summary for the period of January 1 to November 4, 2024 reflects a significant reduction in criminal activity compared to the same period in 2023. There has been an overall reduction in major crimes by 15%, with key categories showing marked improvement. And the quarter we are coming out of, August, September, October, has traditionally been the highest quarter for the year. Traditionally, and the August, September, October 2024 has been the lowest 3 months for the last 5 years. I emphasize that because it reflects the introduction of new strategies by Commissioner Kevin Blake and the team of officers leading the police force today. The total number of murders recorded has fallen by 19%, and that is 233 fewer persons killed this year. Additionally, shootings have seen a reduction of 9%. The guns are still there. We're taking steps to get them off the road. In terms of rapes, there has been a notable decline of 28%. Robbery incidents decreased by 21%. When we look at the divisions that are usually problematic, we have seen even more significant decreases. Indeed, the police indicated that they're going to focus on the 5 critical divisions that literally causes about nearly 50% of the murders in the country on an annualized basis. They are down by some 22% at this point in time. They involve St. James, which is down by 32%, Westmoreland down by 12%, Clarendon down by 39%, Kingston West is down by 30%. I think we'll take note of those 3, St. James, Clarendon, and West Kingston, have areas that hit the emotional and the ears of our people very quickly. There have been dramatic reduction there by virtue of the increased police activity and deployment and intelligence work in these areas. And of course, St. Andrews South, which is down by 14%. Another feature of our success by the police has been the significant reduction in incidents of multiple murders. While the recent 3 have shaken the society, in a sense it is more a reflection of the fact that the society has gotten less, hearing less about multiple murders, and when they happen, it does create a sort of social shock. And indeed, we are concerned about them as everybody's society. At this point last year, however, there were 78 incidents of double murders with 156 victims. This year, there have been 40 such incidents with 80 victims, and we continue to take action to reduce that kind of activity. And I'll allude to it as we proceed. Quadruple murders have been halved from 4 incidents with 16 victims to just 2 incidents, resulting in 8 victims.
Can I please have you stand for the arrival of the Prime Minister, Dr. the Most Honourable Andrew Holness. Good morning.
Good morning. Minister, you're presenting? Okay. All right.
Thank you. Welcome, Prime Minister. Quadruple murders have been halved from 4 incidents with 16 victims to just 2 incidents, resulting in 8 victims. This reduction in major crime numbers reflect the effectiveness of our strategies to reduce gang-related activities and violent crimes. The downward trend across multiple crime categories highlights our continued success in combating and curtailing gangsters, gun violence, contributing to safer communities across the nation. This was based on the critical point we have reached in the government strategy, which was to expand the police force, increase their resources, and have the leadership of the Jamaica Consular Force initiate new strategies and deployments, which is beginning to show the results, which we indicated at the very beginning of our term when there was some controversy about the state of public emergencies. They have made a big difference. In recent years, the JCF has significantly disrupted the activities of criminal organizations, reducing the number of active criminal gangs in Jamaica by more than half. is a deliberate strategy to go after the persons foremost in perpetrating of violence. Indeed, the Commissioner used the expression, communities are not violent, individuals are violent. And we seek to build the cases around those individuals. Our intelligence has identified just under 230 such persons of high priority. They have been prioritized for investigation, and so far, 90 of them are wanted for murders and other major crimes, and are being pursued by our fugitive apprehension teams across the country. I wish to emphasize that because sometimes there are those who seek to think the police are targeting individuals in an arbitrary manner. The objective is to build cases around the individuals and seek to have them arrested, apprehended, and prosecuted. If they engage the police is trained to defend themselves effectively. We must also recognize our success in removing illegal firearms from our streets, a critical step in preventing violence before it occurs. So far this year, 667 illegal firearms were taken off the streets. In this area, we are taking further steps to work closely with our partners. We must also recognize our success in removing illegal firearms from our streets, a critical step in preventing violence before it occurs. So far this year, 667 illegal firearms were taken off the streets. In this area, we are taking further steps to work closely with our partners, overseas partners, and to improve and increase the intensity of our review of our ports of entry to prevent the continued influx of illegal firearms in the country. We have, in fact, this government has, in fact, developed the new Firearms Act, which increases the penalty for illegal possession of firearms. But as I said, we are taking physical steps around. The police is actively engaged in looking at all the details, working with customs and the Jamaica Defence Force Coast Guard to ensure our coastline is protected and we can apprehend the purveyors of illegal firearms in our country. Notably, 383 guns were seized directly from assailants, that is in combat literally. Each of these seizures reflects a successful intervention and interruption of a criminal act that could have cost lives. A further 284 removed in situation without arrest. Notwithstanding these successes, there are some areas of concern which need repeating and emphasizing, such as the occurrence of multiple victim incidents with larger than usual number of victims. In Cherry Lane, 8 lives were tragically lost and 9 others injured due to an ongoing gang war. Similarly, gang violence in the Warwick Hills area, now known as Pleasant Hill, claimed the lives of 5 individuals, including 2 suspected gang leaders. And then the Boyne Road triple murder in South St. Andrews was part of an ongoing conflict between rival gangs. These incidents demonstrate the reach and destructive nature of gang violence. Despite the complexity of these cases, we are making significant progress. In the Cherry Tree Lane incident, we have arrested and charged 2 individuals linked to the gang and seized an illegal firearm. 2 suspects linked to the incident, one of whom was positively identified as a shooter, were fatally shot when they challenged the members of the police force as they sought to apprehend them. The remaining members of the gang are being pursued to be brought to justice. Please be assured that we are committed to pursuing justice for the victims of these senseless acts of violence. To those involved in these criminal activities, I say this: choose a different path to solving your conflicts. If you choose violence, we will find you and will bring you to justice. Let us address organized crime, particularly gang activity. This year, our strategy has sharpened this focus on dismantling gang structures across the island. Thus far in 2024, we launched 2,777 anti-gang operations, resulting in the detention of 488 individuals. We also detained 19 female gang members, which evidence that our efforts are targeting networks, addressing crime at every level within these organizations. Since the start of the year, we have charged 163 gangsters, as compared with 145 last year. We have put 8 gangs, inclusive of 73 gang members, before the court, and 28 other gangs are being investigated. The road to ending gang and gun violence is a long one, but these successes show that we are moving in the right direction. I call on all Jamaicans to stand with us, to support the efforts of the police to work with us and to continue believing that we can bring about the change we will wish to see, we all wish to see. Together we will dismantle the power of the gangs, and we will continue to drive gun violence out of our communities one step at a time. Our efforts are yielding results, but we cannot do this alone. We need the support of every Jamaican, both at home and the diaspora. If you have any information that could assist our investigation, no matter how insignificant you may think it might be, please come forward and share it with the police. The little pieces put together build the big case, and we get to put away the gangsters and find those who are purveying illegal firearms in our community. Your information could be the key to solving these cases and bringing justice to the victims and their families. We are committed to ensuring the safety and security of all Jamaicans. We still continue to work tirelessly to prevent further violence and maintain peace in our communities. The government has made this a priority. We're investing in taking the police force to a level where we are confident they can deal with the gangs and the contraband purveyors of firearms and other contraband that damage the entire fabric of society. We are moving in the right direction. We want your support to continue on that road. Thank you very much.
Thank you, DPM, and again emphasizing the reduction in crime numbers, which I will repeat every single week again. And so we have the Prime Minister with us who will address us on these matters and also other matters, and we'll take some questions from the media. Please welcome our Prime Minister, Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness.
Good morning, everyone. I appear to be addressing you quite often these days. First, I think you could describe my interventions as a rap in media terms. I will be traversing several subject areas and trying to put everything into context. Let me begin with the recent rains that we have had as a result of the tropical storm. Minister Morgan would have given you an update as to the damage that took place. We are not yet in a position to give definitive figures as to the damage assessment and what it will cost. Our figures are preliminary, but we expect them to be in the wide region of between $500 million to $1 billion. But as I said, by the end of today, we will have more refined figures to share with the public. But I would like to point out that we have a multi-layered disaster risk response mechanism, which we didn't have 5 years or so ago. In other words, this is a new development in our government, which all Jamaicans should be proud of. One of the features of Jamaica, the old Jamaica, is that whenever disasters struck, particularly external, unexpected ones, like the ones that we are experiencing now, weather-based, climate-based disaster, we would have to borrow. It would have a significant fiscal impact. And I'm saying this to the public so that it gets into our consciousness, so that we appreciate that Jamaica has changed and changed in positive ways. Now, whenever there is an unexpected shock for the government, meaning something we did not budget for, the implication is not just that we will have to borrow to finance. The implication is that you will have to pay more taxes to eventually finance the borrowing. And one of the reasons why we have been able to say that for the life of our administration, you have had no net new taxes, it's precisely because we have transformed the way in which we manage your affairs. We have created fiscal buffers that are what we have used to support our response to disasters. And we have developed the National Natural Disaster Risk Financing Mechanism. What that is we have made budgetary allocations to create buffers, which we have put into a contingency fund. That fund is approximately about 5 billion Jamaican dollars, and we use that to respond to disasters as they occur. So it is likely that we will be able to fund the damage from this most recent unexpected shock from what we have budgeted. In other words, Jamaica is at the stage where instead of borrowing to finance, what we do is we now set aside from the budget to be able to finance these things. It's a big change in how Jamaica operated. Now, it's multi-layered because what I've just outlined is just one element of the response, and we do have insurance in the CRIF. So if there are weather events that meet a certain threshold, then we can draw down on that insurance. I'm not certain whether or not this weather event would meet the threshold, but all weather events that are of significance will be checked. And then Jamaica did something quite novel and innovative. We issued a catastrophe bond. We're the first to do it in this region, the first small country to do it. And if the weather event is of a particular significance, then we have resources that we would get from that as well. So we will be able to respond to these disasters. But for many Jamaicans, the question is, why does it take so long? And what about the conditions of our roads? So I'm here this morning to give some context to the government's response to natural disasters and specifically the conditions of our roads. Now, bear in mind that the majority of our roads are under extreme stress for several reasons. First, many of our roads, in fact most of our roads, have passed their engineered useful life. They were built in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and the kind of maintenance that is required to extend the useful engineering life of these roads, we were not able to finance it over the last 50 or so years. So we have roads that are past their useful life. I mean, if you consider in any community in Jamaica, the road that passed your gate, for example, when was that road built in your community? And you would say decades ago. And how many times in those decades was your road substantially rehabilitated? So what we're facing is an accumulation of disinvestment in our roads, which have reached a crisis point. The second factor that we should bear in mind is that many of the roads that were constructed were not necessarily constructed to the engineering standards that would carry the level of traffic and the load. So in the last 10 years, I don't have the exact figure, I stand to be corrected, but the last figures I looked at suggested that the number of cars have significantly, probably doubled in Jamaica under this administration. So the wearing surface of roads are under significant stress. The third factor that we should consider is the change in climate change. weather-related events are impacting our infrastructure in significant ways. And consider it from 2 points of view. First, it is the rain events. Many of our roads were not built in the first place with drainage, with the proper camber, and the layers of asphalt sometimes would not have been at the thickness to withstand the wear. The other point to note is that aside from increasing rain, there is also increased runoff. We have more houses, more paved areas, and that in itself generates more water, which wears the surface of the road. Consider as well that the time has gotten hotter, and that in itself has an impact on the material that is used. So if you put all of these things together, it is quite understandable why all Jamaicans are frustrated with the road situation. So I want to say to the country that the government is aware of it. The government is not insensitive to it. But to put Jamaicans in the frame of mind to understand that the response is not patch the road. Yes, we must respond by patching the road. It gives temporary relief. But if you really want to see a transformational change in Jamaica's road circumstances, in the same way that we have transformed our financial circumstances, it takes an enterprise-level plan to do it, meaning that it is a multifaceted response that is needed. And what has the government been doing to create this kind of multifaceted response to roads? The first thing is that we have to collect the data on our roads. We operated under the understanding that we had somewhere in the region of about 20,000 kilometers of roadways in Jamaica. And the NWA would have assessed that. My recollection of this is that about half of the roadways would be in need of repair. Recently, I directed the NWA and the Ministry of Local Government to do a national audit of our roadways. And so far it is looking like we have 27,000 kilometers of roads. And we're not completed yet. It might be a little bit more. So the notion that we were laboring under in terms of roadways that we have far more roads in terms of length. And by the way, this audit, it is not just merely looking at the GIS mapping. They actually went out, drove the roads, assessed some of the circumstances, measured the length of the roadway. In addition to that, we have now started to look at how are we going to administer the roads. Right now, the laws regarding how we administer the roads require that they be gazetted according to which entity uses them and whether or not they are local or main roads. So government is examining how do we administer the ledger of roads that we have. Another point to note is that for the public driving on a road, as far as they're concerned, every road is a responsibility of the government. Now, government can't work like that. I mean, government has to be responsible for the roads it knows of. And there is a process by which, and I'm using simple language, but there is a process by which the government comes into ownership or knowledge of a road. Not every road that is built is the government's responsibility. And I think that needs to get into the public consciousness in the conversation about roads. So there are some roads that are private roads. They're built in subdivisions, in gated communities, and so forth. Then there are roads that were built in housing schemes that should be handed over to the government, that people are driving on, the regular public is using the road. So technically, it's the government's road, but it's just not officially on the government's books as their roads. Or the NWA might not have it as their roads. The parish council may not have it as their roads. And these roads were aptly described in Parliament in a debate as orphan roads. In other words, no entity owns them. And there are many communities that are plagued by the frustration of not being able to get any entity to respond to their roads. So how we administer the roads, that is under consideration now. Many years ago, there was the contemplation of a one road authority. There is no position on that right now, but just to alert the public that in terms of our long-term strategic intervention on roads, we will have to look at how roads are accounted for and how they are administered in order that we can properly budget for them. The other issue with the roads in terms of how we account for them and how they are administered is the standards that we set for the roads. In other words, we can't just take over every new road that is built in every development. They must be built to specified standards. And there are standards in place, but we will be giving directives to the NWA regarding a review of these standards. We have effectively changed some of the standards of our road construction. For example, every main road that we are now building, we don't consider it just asphalting and putting on the blacktop. No, we consider it utility corridors. So we put in provisions for new water mains. We put in provisions for broadband internet. We make provisions for cameras and other sensors that might be needed. We look at the intersection, how that road relates to other roads, and the ease of traffic for the intersection. And of course, the ease of movement by pedestrians. So sidewalks and provisions for disabled persons, safety rails and other road furniture. All of that is a part of the standard that we are putting in, particularly for main roads. But for other roads, we will have to look at standards as well. And the NWA will be tasked to coming up with those standards. So now, I think from what I've said, you start to see the complexity of the issue of responding to the road crisis now, which crisis is an appropriate word to describe it. Now, once we have started to get the data on the road to properly categorize, solve the administrative issues relating to how we administer resources to these roads, then we have to pay attention, close attention, to the level of skill and enterprise of the persons who will actually do the work to build the roads, our contractors. And our contractors are critical stakeholders in our response to the construction and maintenance of our roads. Jamaica has a good cadre of contractors, but I think that in the next phase of Jamaica's intervention in our roads, we're going to need to work up front with our contractors to build capacity. I think the conversation has been not very helpful. There have been accusations and innuendos about contractors and their capabilities and so on. That's not helpful. What is helpful is if we take a proactive approach with our contractors and seek to assist them in building out their capabilities and their capacities, because this is in the national interest. You know, no matter how well we budget and how well we account for and administer the roads, the person who is actually laying the asphalt, we must ensure that they have the technical skills, the know-how, and of course, road projects require sometimes substantial balance sheets to be able to execute. So the government needs to examine ways in which we can support our contractors to develop the skills. Many of them have, but some of them are trying, but we need to support them. So we're going to be examining that and assist in the promotion and development of the contracting community, because oftentimes we simply just don't have enough contractors to do the level of work that is required, which is going to be the case, particularly as the Spark program rolls out. So let's move to the other element, which is procurement. And that takes some time. One project comes to mind, Minister, that bridge in Troy Bridge took 2 years, and the people in the community cut off were very frustrated. There is, once the law is in place, there's very little we can do to maneuver around it. We must comply with the law. But as lawmakers who sit in Parliament, and that happens for a reason, meaning that the lawmakers can't be disconnected from the frustration of the people. And the frustration is government needs to move faster. So we must take a second look at the procurement process. You know, it's hard for me to say to someone who is dropping in a pothole every single day that they are going to work that, yes, your road is in procurement. And I'm not just talking about the procurement phase, it's from the investment phase right through to the contracting, which includes the procurement to the actual work being done. And that entire administrative bureaucracy that has been put in place needs a second look, given the urgency and crisis that we have with our roads. So I wanted to just bring the public up to date in what the government is doing behind the scenes to have a comprehensive response to the road situation in Jamaica. We are going to fix your roads, and when it is done, it will be transformational. And like everything else that we have done, it's not a patch response. It is building systems in place that will become institutions that will endure, that will solve the problem over the short, medium, and long term. So that we put that behind us. In the same way we have solved the fiscal issues, we're going to take the same strategic, instrumental approach to dealing with our roads. And you would have seen that with the announcement of the Spark program, which I must give commendations to Minister Clark. Minister Clark and myself conceived the program and found the funding for it. Former Minister Clark. We found the funding for it, and I also must give commendations to the NWA, E.G. Hunter and others in particular, who constructed the program in such a way that it could move very quickly. Minister Morgan is piloting that program now. We have passed the public investment assessment phase. We have almost completed, Minister, the procurement phase. That is still ongoing, but we're close to completing. So hopefully, the start date which we were giving in November, I'm still being hopeful that we could get it in November. But the project is well on its way. You're not seeing the actual asphalt hitting the road, but believe me when I tell you, the asphalt putting on the road is maybe 20% of the entire project, from conception to the public investment assessment to procurement to contracting, procurement, and then implementation. So we're close to starting that. Now, as I wrap up on roads, $40 billion. It's the largest allocation ever for roads. And these are roads that the public has an input in determining what is the priority. 20 billion of that will go to local roads, and it is distributed equitably per constituency. And the constituents would have attended the consultations, they would have raised their issues, and we did that because, yes, there is a culture of blocking the road in the belief that somehow that is going to spur the government into action. Two things. One, we know about the condition of the road because we are assessing the road. And secondly, you know, if the government were to respond to every roadblock, it would be chaotic. All right? So as a nation, we need to understand that, you know, it is not a negligent government that is uncaring and not paying attention. Rather, it is a huge problem, and it is not your community alone. And the government is putting in place a strategic, well thought out response that will ensure that your road will not just be patched, but a full rehabilitation that will last you significantly, maybe even a lifetime. And that needs to be understood. $20 billion will go to main roads, and that will be at the direction of the NWA. And those roads, the criteria would be high traffic, strategic connectivity, and enhancing, you know, our productivity. So clearly we're going to look at roads that enhance productivity, connectivity, and strategic value. And $5 billion we have committed to ensure that we lay the water mains along these roads so that we don't have to go back and dig up the road again. So there are some roads that there are no water mains there, but if we're going to do it, may as well we put in those water mains. There are some roads where the water mains are old, they're calcified, broken, or too small. We will replace them. So with that, I say to Jamaicans that I'm not asking for your patience, I'm asking for your understanding. And giving you the assurance that we will fix your roads. Already, we have allocated an additional $3 billion for patching. Minister Morgan may have given you an update on that. Note that we cannot patch if it is raining. From a technical perspective with the asphalt, but even from an economical perspective, you patch today and it rains tomorrow and all of that is gone again, wasted. We're coming up to the Christmas season, which coincides with our routine maintenance regime. So there will be a further allocation to constituencies for patching. So there will be some funds in the system to be able to respond at the local level to some of the concerns that exist. So I want, again, to say to the Jamaican people, government understands the issue. We agree it is at a crisis proportion. We did not create this problem. This problem is 50 years in the making. It's compounded, and just to be clear, it is a problem of lack of the financial resources over the last 50 years to make the investments in the roads. So when we complain about what is not being done, what is not being done is not the lack of the things you have. What was not being done was to create the economy that gives the wherewithal, the resources to provide you with the things we have. Our conversation is one-sided, lopsided, and very narrow. We complain we don't have buses, we don't have roads, we don't have water. Complain about the economy. It is the economy that you didn't have, that you didn't hold the governments then to account, that created these problems. And until our political discourse improves, then these problems will continue because we keep letting off governments easily for not fixing the economic problems while giving you promises about the ills that it creates. All right? It is the economy. It's about creating the economy. And what this administration is trying to do is to say to the higgler in the market, the teacher in the classroom, the small businessman, the housewife. Let us build a productive economy. When we increase productivity in the economy, we have more resources. And that's what we've been doing. We have been increasing the productivity in the economy. And we have seen that productivity increase in small ways by increasing employment. So once more people are employed, more production is taking place. But we are at the point where we are almost at full employment. So where is the productivity going to come from? It is going to come from the increase in productivity of labor, but even more so, the increase in productivity from businesses, how businesses administer their affairs. And that now we're talking about innovation, administration, the creation of new products, the introduction of technology, the creation of new industries. That is where the big productivity gains are going to come from. And when we get those big productivity gains, we're going to take that and support the fixing of your roads, your water supply. Every Jamaican must make that connection. Now, let's talk about another pain point in the society. Minister Chang would have spoken to you in his presentation regarding the crime situation in Jamaica. Today, I just want to add to what Minister Chang has said. We called in the High Command to Cabinet on Monday, and we discussed a policy issue. Remember, we don't give directives, operational directives to the police, but it is the duty of the government to give general policy directions and to express concerns that we have in terms of emerging issues. Of course, we gave commendations to the force regarding the reduction in homicides and shootings and the general reduction in crime. But we remain concerned that even though there is a downward trajectory, that the public is still of the view that crime is high. It is, again, a conflicting perception, but we don't argue with the perception of the public. What we try to do is to give information and place things into context. So we can understand if Jamaica is coming from 30, 40 years of high murders and high crime, and we're already at a very high level, that even though reduction is taking place, it is not yet at the threshold where the average person believes that the crime and violence situation has improved. So we accept and we understand that. But again, to place this into context, if you look at victimization surveys, you would see that the average person in Jamaica would not be an outlier as it relates to victimization, meaning that our victimization rates are not exceptionally over and above victimization rates for the region, meaning what people experience in terms of murders. There might be areas that are where it is concentrated, and so in those communities the victimization rate is high, but for the rest of the country it's not an outlying situation. But Jamaica is an outlier as it relates to the murder rate, murders per 100,000. And it is an outlier as it relates to guns used in murders. Jamaica is an outlier also as it relates to gang, meaning the organized armed violence. So Jamaica's gangs are not youths on the corner who are organizing to protect their community from whatever outside threats. No, Jamaica's gangs are organized entities, meaning that they act with intelligence. They specifically go to recruit youngsters, and they use violence for economic means. So there is an objective that they are about. So these are persons who are trying to make money off using crime and particularly violence. So you have gangs that are involved in crime, but there's no violence. Jamaica's gangs, they organize for crime and they use violence. And another feature is that they use weapons, armed violence. So I think every community should reject the notion that somehow the Don is a Robin Hood and he's there to help you or support you or he's there favorably protected. That's nonsense. There are criminals who are organizing the youngsters in your community to commit crimes to make money for themselves. And that is where we are an outlier. More than 60%, 70% of our homicides are related to this kind of activity, which is why we are focused on reducing, degrading, and eliminating gangs. So we were at one point as many as over 300 gangs, and now we are down to together 180, 170. We're now down to 170. So we're making progress. We're making progress. But we are particularly concerned about a new, it's not new, it's always been there, but in light of the reduction in murders, we see this emerging threat of, some people have described it as mass shootings. I want to be more careful with my language, but multiple fatality shooting incidents. So you would have, Minister Chang would have given you an update on Cherry Tree Lane, on Warwick Hill, now Pleasant View Heights, and some other shootings that have happened in Bowen Lane, that's adjoining my constituency, and other areas. And the reason why we are concerned is that the efforts that we are making in reducing shootings and murders could easily be wiped out by just one incident. And this is of concern to us, of grave concern to us. So what we have been doing is we have looked at the laws and we have been examining the possible responses that the security forces could have. And the law does give some account for such actions under the Offences Against the Person Act. A person who commits a murder and who is convicted of the same especially if the murder is committed under the circumstances where the act appears to be calculated to create a state of fear in the public or any section of the public, that the maximum penalty, or rather the maximum charge, should be applied, meaning a sentence of death or life imprisonment. So I believe that the police should start to look at these kinds of shootings and seek to prosecute along those lines. Again, that would be a kind of direction that we have given to the police. In other words, we need to start treating these incidents as criminal terrorism. And we probably need to craft legislation to specifically identify these kinds of shootings. We are saying that there are mass shootings. I don't like the term. I would prefer to say multiple fatalities, multiple victims, or multiple fatal victims incidents. So we are examining the legislation to see how we can craft specific laws around that, or whether or not we actually have legislation that can be used together to create that impact. Because it is beyond me to see why someone would see a festive event going on, as in Cherry Tree Lane, or in Worker Hills, Pleasant View Heights, and just open fire on a crowd. I mean, what other reason could there be aside from just the sheer inhumanity and savagery, other than to create fear in a community and the public? Terror is the word for it. And therefore, these persons are not ordinary criminals. They are your worst kind and should be pursued with extreme prejudice. So, the police, I believe, have been doing a good job in pursuing these criminals, and I want them to know, whoever is out there listening, planning, that we will find you, and you will either meet a judge or your maker. Choice is yours. Outside of that, the government will continue to incentivize the public to share information. In the Cherry Tree Lane incident, we had put up a reward of about 20 million Jamaican dollars. 25? Yeah, so we're going to increase that. The permanent secretary is just hearing me say that now. We'll look at the budget and see what we have. But we must incentivize the sharing of information. And anytime there is any shooting that is a multiple victim shooting, there will be a substantial reward for the public, for anyone who would give information leading to the capture, arrest of anyone who is involved, including persons who provide information, aid and abet in any way those persons who commit those crimes. I know that the police have special formations in place to deal with this, but we have also given direction that they increase their intelligence assets around these crimes to ensure that the perpetrators are caught and brought to justice. So I want to assure the Jamaican people, particularly as we head into the festive season, that the police will be vigilant and we will increase the resources to ensure that we give general coverage and protection, but that these multiple victim incidents are addressed specifically. And as I close on that point, I've seen the pleadings and complaints of persons in the entertainment industry. My constituency is one area that thrives on the street dances and the parties. You know, I have invested in developing the hip strip in my constituency. So I well understand, you know, that round robins and parties are legitimate economic activities, and the government supports legitimate economic activities. And we want people to enjoy themselves, right? And these parties can be a good way of bringing communities together. And if properly managed, it can become a real major industry for Jamaica. So I don't want our promoters to feel that somehow, you know, the government is against promote. That's not true. But it is equally of concern when we note that many of these mass shootings, as they are called, the multiple victim incidents, are occurring in proximity or at festive events, bars and parties and so forth. The response has been to be preemptive, and the local police commanders have exercised their authority in curtailing some of these events. But we acknowledge that that can't be the only response, that we really have to bring the community in and work with them to establish the security protocols and actions that they need to put in place to prevent some of these things from happening. I mean, one immediately comes to mind is your event space being recorded by surveillance cameras? And that is something that could easily be put in as a start, as a deterrent. When you're having these parties, yes, you go and apply for a permit, but why not go and sit down with the local commander first and say, give me a security assessment of the area. I'm planning something. How can I be of assistance to you in ensuring that the security environment is safe for everyone? Because you want your party, your event to be safe for your patrons as well. So I think that there has to be a kind of different approach. So from a policy perspective, we are examining that, and you will hear more about how we will give some directions, particularly coming up to the festive seasons, to keep these events safe. We want the events to be held. They are legitimate activities. They bring income to the communities in which they are held. We want them, but we also want the safety of the people who attend these events. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, I was giving you an extensive wrap, but this was a wrap with a blanket. Thank you very much.
Naomi, I know we're at 10:02, and both PM and DPM and Minister Morgan have to be somewhere else, so I think we could take maybe 2 questions.
Indeed, we have our representative from the Gleaner here, so we'll be very quick about it. Good morning once again.
Hi, good morning. Sashana Small from the Gleaner. I have a question for the PM and for the Deputy PM as well.
Gentlemen.
Prime Minister, when can the country expect to hear the announcement of a senator replacement for Matthew Samuda? And we have been getting reports of contractors who completed roadworks with the NWA from May, but have not been paid. Why is this? A question.
Let me just quickly, with the questions that were asked. The government is, we are currently examining the composition of the Senate. As you would have seen, the government has been steadily refreshing itself and renewing its human resources, and that also extends to the Senate. So very shortly, we will complete that process. In terms of the contractors, Minister Morgan would probably be able to give you specifics. There is a process of ensuring and validating works done before payments are made. Sometimes that process can be long, and though the budget allocations are made, the question is sometimes when what is called the warrants are actually, in other words, when the cash moves from the Ministry of Finance to the actual ministry. So there are many issues that could cause delays in works, and usually sometimes there are disputes as well that account for the delay. But to say generally, there is a valid concern for contractors, and not just construction and infrastructure contractors, but contractors to the government generally, about the long time it takes for them to get paid. So one of the first tasks that I have given Minister Williams is to examine this process to ensure that government is actually speeding up economic activity by paying its bills quickly and on time. So that's a specific task that has been given to Minister Williams. Before I turn over to Minister, let me, I haven't said it yet, but though I have tweeted, is to congratulate the President-elect of the United States, President Trump, and his victory last night. Of course, one of the contestants in the race has some Jamaican connections, and we wish Vice President Harris all the best.
Dr. Chang, so my question for you is, when can we expect the enhanced security measures to be brought to Parliament? And Indicom recently raised concerns about police officers not wearing their body cameras in shooting incidents specifically. What is the ministry doing to address this?
Well, to kind of begin at the back end, first of all, Indicom, many police officers wear cameras. You must face the fact the primary benefit of cameras is in public order. So when police officers apprehend vendors on the street, people disposing of garbage, and events that might be too loud, and they seek to apprehend, they have to remove equipment or take away vendors, which we are going to change in terms of how we deal with that. But those associations where cameras are of value, and we have heard very little of anything of that sort, where policemen are seen brutalizing citizens. In homicide situation, which is being emphasized by both some public interests and individuals, and it's their right to do so on Indicom, it's of very little value. If you get in combat with a camera on your chest, first of all, you're going to die because you're being shot at. And the JDF has used them before in the helmets, and they prove quite invalid because they fell off, they got knocked off, and they have very little value in those situations. So the first person we're equipping are the PSTB formation, which is deal with the public in public order. It is of very little value, and you don't need to be an expert to understand it. You put a helmet, a camera on your chest, you start shooting at somebody. First they start shooting at you, you're going to die for cover. Policemen are not in. They have helmets and vests, but they are not designed to take shots really before they respond. So that has to be borne in mind. But we take the comments from the Indicom, we examine them, and I'll be meeting with the leadership to discuss that. Enhanced security measures, well, look, we have many enhanced security measures out there. The legislature itself, as a specific entity which has been described in policy, is awaiting further research by the lawyers. But as far as enhanced security measures, all I have announced this morning are enhanced security measures. And the future formations, they increase the redevelopment of the highway patrol, they focus on gangs, increase intelligence activity, both technologically and human resources, are a suite of activities that are enhanced security measures. There's a focused piece of legislation which requires legal scholars to research and give me the advice, and the Prime Minister. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chang, and thank you to all of our participants this morning, especially our Prime Minister, who gave us a lot of information in relation to roads and the context around roads, and also in terms of crime numbers. And as I leave you today, just noting again that from January to November 2024, major crimes in Jamaica have decreased by 15%. Murders are down by 19%. Which means 233 people did not lose their lives. And that's important. Shootings are down by 9%, rapes have declined by 28%, and robberies are down by 21%. There is more work to be done, but we have to applaud the JCF and the hard work that has been done in achieving these types of numbers. And so we know today is a big day. We have nomination day for 2 divisions and 2 constituencies. And so we close off our post-cabinet press briefing now. And I say, as usual, God bless all of you watching, and God bless Jamaica, land we love.